Well, good morning or good afternoon or good evening to all of our wonderful listeners. We have a special treat for you. This is our first official podcast episode where we have a guest. We are hosting this morning one of my favorite people that I don't get to spend enough time with, but I'll tell you why he's one of my favorite people, Tyler Dickerhoff. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, you did great.
Good. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement. You're so encouraging.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
I want to give a little backdrop. First of all, for our listeners, my throat is a mess because I'm still fighting a virus. So forgive me for all the throat clearing. I'll try to limit it and whatnot. But I met Tyler years ago. It turns out about 4 or 5 years ago. Somehow we were mutually connected. I think I was on your podcast.
You were. Been on
We had
twice.
such a great time.
Yeah.
There was such a good connection that when you were in San Diego, which is where I reside, we ended up playing around a golf together.
Yeah, we did. We had
Where I got to spend 4.5 hours with you to really get to
know. Would you
know
describe them pleasurable?
More than pleasurable. Because here's the thing: you meet people, you run across
Golf.
people.
Yeah,
I'm on podcasts. People, I mean, you run across people all the time. But it's not until you spend a concentrated amount of time where people kind of let their hair down. No pun intended.
That was very intended, Eric.
Yeah, I'm sorry for our listeners. Tyler is
Shiny
a cleanly shaven man, handsome at that. But it's not until you spend concentrated time with people that you really get to know them, right? The person behind the curtain. And it was like the more time I spent with you, the more I felt like this guy is so authentic, so true to everything we've talked about. And those are the kind of people that I like to spend time with and surround myself with. So I immediately fell in love with you. I had a man crush, and we've stayed connected ever since. I think I came back on your podcast when I was releasing a book. Yeah. And so, Tyler, it is so good to have you again here this morning. And I'm super excited for our listeners to get to hear a little bit about your story, your journey, how you got to where you are and who you are today, because I know that's so much a part of what you're doing with your work in this season. And then you are getting ready to release a book.
That's right.
Which I'm super pumped about. I got to read a short excerpt from it. And so we're going to dive in also to this book, get to hear about it, what you're tackling, and really the value that you're wanting to share with the world. And so I'm hoping that after this podcast, our listeners are going to be excited and motivated to go get that book, to read it, because I am 1,000% convinced it is going to be incredibly helpful to anybody who reads it. So welcome. Good morning. So glad to see your beautiful face.
Well, thanks, man. Thank you so much for allowing me to be there's all the sort of ways that I could say it, but to be the maiden voyage per se of guests and, pop a cherry. I mean, we go to all the tongue-in-cheek things, right? But man, I am so gracious. I'm so thankful. And there's two things that you said in there that I'm proud. I say it with pride. I say it with significance that you mentioned. One, that I truly did show up as genuine and authentic in person. I have a mentor that he is the epitome of that to me. And people are like, oh, he's great. He's written a lot of books. And I'm like, well, he's even better in person. And that's something that I've always strove to be, especially as I've grown and evolved. The other thing that you mentioned, and I had this conversation with some of the people that I coached yesterday, and a friend of mine who I've met much this same way through podcasts, a guy that I would say probably pretty similar type relationship. And, he's like, Tyler, your superpower. I'm like, oh, what does it tell me? And he goes, you lift people. You're an encourager. Yeah. You help others accomplish more than what they thought they could. I'm like, I appreciate that, because that is part of my purpose. But I've also heard that now, as you just shared a couple times in the last few weeks. And that is not what people would have said 10, 12 years ago.
Okay. Let me jump in real quick. Yeah. The word superpower. I love that because I'm a big believer, and I'm sure you are, that all people have superpowers.
Yeah.
Now, our life journey is about whether we're going to leverage those superpowers as superheroes right? For what's in the best interest of the people in our life and the world around us, or as supervillains when we're operating out of insecurity, fear, anger, hostility. Interesting concept, huh?
Well, there's something that came up it's come up this week, but it's been in the last, now I would say 16, 18 hours with a conversation with someone. And when you talk about the difference between superpower, and you kind of, I think, layered it in very well. Superpower, if it's done right, is in service of others.
Yes.
Superman, his superpower was his strength, whatever, to serve others. There's other characters, right? The villain side, their superpower served them.
You got it.
There's something in the middle.
Yeah.
There's the misaligned. It's not a superpower where it's serving others, but it's not a to this becoming a supervillain where it's at the expense of others. It is, this is where I'm trying to establish all the value I have. And so it becomes very protective.
Ooh.
It's not serving others because I'm not maximizing what I'm uniquely gifted at to bring out the best in others, but I'm not acting in a way as to hurt and harm others. It's essentially, I'm isolating and I'm placing myself on an island and I'm doing whatever, like Tom Hanks in the movie Castaway, that it's like, I got to do all this to protect myself. So this is pretty amazing. Like, we did set this up, like, but it's amazing coming to me. Those are three distinct characters.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
The superhero serves others. The supervillain takes for themselves. Whatever we want to name in the middle is the person who has something unique. Maybe they're lauded for, and it was kind of like they become almost a team unicorn. Dude, we can't move you, Eric, because you're the only one in the organization that can do this.
Interesting.
You've isolated such a specific place for you that you're irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Okay. In my business background, if someone says, or if you present yourself as irreplaceable, you've ended your life.
Oof. So let me just jump in real quick because we can go on this track for a long time.
And
this is good stuff, though. So just for our listeners, because we've talked about in our podcast in previous episodes about this language around superpowers, and I love what you've introduced, this middle ground, which is a protecting.
We got to come up with a name.
We will. Okay. I love that. But just for our listeners, I just think it's worth hearing, because what I was identifying in Tyler in this opening kind of intro story about getting to know you, Tyler, is highlighting, celebrating the way you're leveraging your superpower. And then your friend was also doing that for you. And I think for our listeners, too often people go through a lot of life without being able to identify their quote unquote superpowers, the unique contributions that they bring to any context that has the capacity to lift others, and when it's in service of others. And so, and I think a lot of our conversation today, as we dive back into your story, as we learn about your new book, I want our listeners to be thinking through the lens of how is it that Tyler's story reveals how the superpower is revealed, because there's always an origin story for superheroes, right? How the superpowers are first exposed or experienced or discovered, and then this journey of learning to use those superpowers in a way that is in service of others. So on that note, let's use that as the kind of framework for our conversation today, and take us back as far as you want and kind of walk us through, because you don't get to who you are and what you're doing today without going on a pretty lengthy journey of ups and downs, of good times and bad times. So just tell us a little bit about the significant mile markers of your life that have made you who you are today.
I would be remiss if I didn't account for the image behind me. And that is, for those listening, it is a road sign, like the classic yellow road sign with a cow on it. I grew up on a dairy farm. That sign is actually real. I don't know where it came from. Somehow it ended up with me, like properly, not like stolen, taken down. But grew up on a dairy farm. And from there, I ended up going to school in New York, got a degree in animal science, thought I was going to be a veterinarian. That didn't turn out. Ended up in California as a nutritionist for dairy cows. So I lived in predominantly throughout my living time in California. I lived in Bakersfield, worked with dairy farms, and I created diets for cows to make them productive and healthy and cost efficient for dairy farmers. Along that journey, I got kicked in the teeth a few times, whether it was 07, 08 financial, issues, whether it was my own zeal and arrogance and just confidence of, man, I know what I'm doing, and quickly find out, hey, I learned this much after, but I thought my job was to make the perfect diet for cows. And I was really good at that because I was technical science and all those things. That was farther from really what my job was.
Wow.
My job was actually working with the farmers, not taking care of the cows. Were happy, but the farmers were like, either it was, I didn't have a right business sense or interactive sense and stuff that I just wasn't aware of. And one of the things that, again, we go to these superpowers and kind of, they can become your Achilles heel. They can become your quote unquote kryptonite when you rely on them so much that you almost overdo it. So my journey then from California, my wife and I, her family had moved to Spokane, Washington, where we live now 17 years ago. So we moved up here. At that point, I ended up taking a job with a firm that worked with a lot of my clients consulting commodity markets. Did that for 4 years. So I balanced both businesses. And then we got to a point where my wife and I, my wife had been exposed to network marketing, never thought she was going to, ever do anything like that. Decided, hey, I can do this. And so that became very much a business career for both of us. We also opened a gym. And it was in that, again, new industry, a new phase, and having a culture very much that was aligned to growth and personal development, where I started to say, why is this so hard? Why have all the struggles that I've gone through much of my discernible, recognizable life from teenage through college, career, whatever, why was it so hard? Why was it always hard? And ultimately through that journey and kind of the pattern of looking for a mentor found me to spend time with John Maxwell, the leadership author.
The John Maxwell.
Yes,
wow.
The John Maxwell. And it was in those rooms where I really transformed, first and foremost. And number two, where ultimately I learned a valuable lesson that ties into what we're talking about. And I call it the sharpest knife. It's actually a chapter in my book. And it's the story of two Johns. One, a very close friend, John Ruhlin, who wrote a book called Giftology. It's phenomenal. And he Cutco business. And he taught me this is like, hey, if I were to ask you, Eric, what's your favorite knife? Your sharpest knife? You could probably describe exactly where it's at in the kitchen, which drawer, which cabinet, what it looks like, right?
Yep.
Now, if I ask you, Eric, tell me about the utensils that you have in the utensil drawer. What are they? Are they pretty nondescript? It's just kind of like you go in and grab a fork, a butter knife, table knife, a spoon. It really doesn't matter. You just grab whichever's there. And hence this lesson. It's better to be the sharpest knife in the kitchen than all the utensils in the drawer.
Oof. Okay. So now take that principle, which is so powerful, and walk our listeners through what did it mean then for you to become the sharpest knife? What does that actually practically look like for you in that season?
Yeah. It is understanding that, I don't need to be good at everything to be valued.
Okay.
I just need to find the one unique thing that I am passionately love to do in the service of others.
Getting back to the superpower, conversation.
It's the superpower, and we each have them. And the great challenge in life, and the Mark Twain quote, the 2 best days of your life, the day you're born and the day you figure out why. And all that is centered around purpose. What is your purpose? And I tell the story in my book about a situation that happened in my life. When I was 14, growing up on a farm, my younger brother, who was 3, died in a farming accident. I drove over him. And why that story is important is going back and through this journey of evolution, seeking mentorship. And why is this so hard? There was a moment where I was sitting in the gym. I just got done working out. And at this point, we owned a gym and we had just normal employee issues, like normal everyday stuff. Like, oh, you got to communicate. Hey, when you call off, you got to give me a heads up. Like, let's work through this. Like, you have responsibilities. You can't just throw your hands in the air and just hope the work fairy takes care of it. Like, there's real repercussions. In my kind of attitude at that time is either get with the program or get gone. In kind of this high level intensity, almost insensitivity. And so we were dealing with that situation. Kind of normal, right? I'm not telling you about a situation that most leaders don't have in some extent.
It's not foreign.
No. And I am transported back to that June day, that Saturday afternoon. And after I'd driven over my brother and he died, and the sheriff is asking me questions and just trying to get information, right? Doing his investigation. And I said, it's an accident. It was an accident. It was an accident. It was an accident. And he keeps grilling. And finally, I'm fed up. I'm like, here's the deal. Point to my left. I'm going to go in that barn and milk those cows. If you want to come with me, great. If not, we're done. And as a 14-year-old and a middle-aged, police officer, sheriff asking me questions, I think about the intensity, the resolve to be in that moment so directive. And I'm a person of faith, and I believe this is that God said, this is how you deal with things. Yeah, it doesn't work so well. And that was a lesson where this hard work, this intensity, this I will push to prove my worth and value. I wouldn't say cost me everything, but cost me a lot of things. And those things were relationships. And so that hard work, that willingness to just do, to be all the utensils in the drawer did not win me favors. If anything, it separated me, not in a good way. And so what I had to almost relearn is say, oh, back off a little bit. You don't have to be so forceful. Just figure out what's the one thing that you can do. I can be pretty energetic. I like to learn. I can be very curious. I can, have some visionary tools, some integrator tools. If I talk about rocket fuel type stuff, I have those. Well, how can I serve people the best? And that this last year took me on a journey of defining best. If I asked you, Eric, go do your best. I don't know if you know how to define that or what that is.
Yeah, that's difficult.
Yeah. And so I was in much the same spot. And I'm like, well, shoot, if I feel that way, there's probably other people that's like, Eric, great time today. You did your best. Go do your best. And you're like, I don't know what I did, and I don't know what I should go do, is how I felt. Again, coming back to this, what is your superpower? Identifying it, but knowing each one of us have it. But sometimes it's pretty benign. Unless you have someone that comes beside you and says, hey, Eric, you know what you're really good at? When you do this, man, everyone else performs better. And I thought about John Wooden. John Wooden, the classic UCLA basketball coach, the one of the only people, I think he might be the only person to ever be inducted in the Hall of Fame as both a player and a coach. And what he would do at the start of every basketball season, after he would teach everyone how to put on socks, would watch them play. and he'd identify where they were at their best on the court. Meaning, what were they doing that was contributing to the team's ultimate goal and outcome? And so what he would do is he would stop them, and he would say to whichever player, when you get the ball there, you either pass it or you shoot it. And he would go through that with each player, and he'd make them aware. And so I came up with this acronym, BEST. It's be aware. Now, as a leader, you get to help other people be aware, but there's also taking inventory. It's like, what do I do that, man, it just lights me up. I get excited. And it's like, it's easy to do. Okay. Just be aware. Again, understand, where's that knife? What's the sharpest thing you can do? The next thing is, that's enough. You don't have to do any more. Quit trying to, do more. And this was a lesson I learned from John Maxwell. It's like, quit trying to make your weaknesses, strengths. Now, focus on your strengths. And if that means your weaknesses improve to kind of complement your strengths, then that's fine. But focus on your strengths, not what you're weak. And there was so many times like, oh, you got to work on your weaknesses to become a better player. Really? I need to work on my finishing moves when I'm a defender. Really? It doesn't really compute. That isn't how I can serve the team. So be aware. That's enough. The next one, serve. Whatever you're doing with whatever that is, it needs to be in service of others. How's it helping the people around you? And the last one, I think, whether it's a lifetime journey, whether it's an interaction on teams, whether it is very circumstantial, is probably one of the most powerful. Timing. We'll go to the game of basketball. We'll go to a game you and I both love, soccer, right? If you are a player on a team and you get the ball in the penalty box within the 6, and if you're a scorer, you shoot to goal. So if I'm a forward and I'm back defending, and all of a sudden I'm within the 6 and I see ball, I just shoot at goal. That's not going to help my team, is it? That's an own goal. Well, the vice versa. If you're a defender, and if I see the ball in the 6, I am passing it out. I am clearing it. It's a fracas. You just kick it high and as far away as you can, right? If corner, that's what you do. If there's not an outlet pass, clear it high and away. Well, if you're on the offensive side and you do that, that doesn't help your team.
That's
so
right.
It's understanding the timing.
Yeah.
When do I need to deploy what I'm uniquely gifted to do? It comes back to this superpower is if I use my strength to fly as Superman to serve others, then it's great. If I use it just to, fly around and enjoy that's not helping anyone. Or at the same point, it can be a detriment. And so these lessons that I've kind of had to walk through, going back to the first point of, my intensity is not a strength. It's actually a wall.
Okay, so let me pause you here, because is this acronym, which I think is beautiful, BEST, is this in the new book?
Well, yes, it is, Eric.
Okay, so let me pause this here and transition. This is a good transition point. So you've shared a little bit about your journey, and the challenges you've had to overcome to get to a place where you're not only having discovered your superpowers, but learning to leverage them in service of others, which quite frankly is what makes you an asset to every environment you're in, which is why I started the podcast by bragging about my experience of you, which exactly lines up with what we're talking about. My experience of you was, you are an encourager. You are super positive. You are very attentive. You seem to care deeply about the people around you. You seemed ready at any moment to help, to serve. But you didn't get there overnight. You weren't born with that knowledge and that kind of wisdom. So you had to get there. So I'm assuming all of your life experience, then your time as a mentee of John Maxwell, and then in engaging with other people, you have slowly but surely discovered more and more the authentic version of who Tyler Dickerhoff is. And simultaneously have made a choice, because I believe it's a choice, to leverage what you're discovering about who you are, these superpowers, in service of others. Mm-hmm. And now you've written a book, which I'm assuming, because I've read the excerpt, right? This book is called The Things We Hide, correct?
Yeah.
Coming out here in June. You just alluded to it. So you're alluding now to the challenge of not just discovering our superpowers, but leveraging them in service of others, or operating according to this acronym BEST.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now help us understand what is this book really about, and give us a few handles that our listeners can not just take with them as they leave this podcast, but that might even inspire them to want to get this book so that they understand how it's going to help their life.
So one of the things, and I love how you laid that out, and you know, as we've kind of started this discussion between superpower, supervillain, and you know, you kind of layering this in this, the service of others, the, you know, the passion, the encouragement, those have all been there, right? When I talked to some of my coaches that worked with me starting when I was 8, doing different things, I was in 4-H and doing different competitions and stuff, who worked with me from 8 until 18. And I asked them a couple years ago as I was working through this, it's like, how did my brother's death change me? And they're like, well, you're always kind of, you know, I don't say energetic, passionate, right? Those drive, but your intensity became everything. And that intensity became the wall that I hid behind to protect myself. And a lot of it was at one point in that moment, again, the sheriff brother just died. Like, okay, difficult moment. But then it became, hey, do I have worth? Do I have value? How do I prove myself to my clients? How do I establish value and on a, you know, in a high school, you know, social environment, college, whatever else? It's like, I'll just be more intense, because that got me through one moment, and then it starts to get me through another moment. And that's where, if I look at like my siblings, my parents, and the things that uniquely we have is kind of this hard workers. Well, grew up on a farm, just kind of cultural, but it's also very unique to a detriment, because that hard work, that intensity has become a bulldozer. It'll just push through people, or it puts us on an island where you are the only one that can do this. So therefore you're stuck there.
Yeah.
And that becomes such an anchor that you're like, well, how do I grow and develop? How do I create a bigger impact when I'm stuck in this spot? Because I've created such a niche. Now, we talk about the sharpest knife. That's great. But we've created such a niche. And because we're not up-leveling others, we're not encouraging others to do their best. Hey, there's plenty of time for me to be the knife for Thanksgiving. If that's all I am, the knife for Thanksgiving, great. I let somebody else be the knife for Christmas and Easter and special holidays. That's fine. You can have more than one knife in your kitchen, right? And it's, as a leader, it's understanding that. It's like, oh, no. If I do such a great job of up-leveling others, I'll always have a place. And so then this idea of this person in the middle that creates this isolation.
Okay, let me just pause real quick.
Please.
What you just said was so powerful. I just don't want. Okay, I don't want to miss it.
What did I say?
Listeners,
let me write it down. I don't know. I'm glad this is recorded, Eric.
Let me reflect back to you what I heard in my language, the way I understood it. Is I think all of us, through a variety of difficult life experiences, live with this insecurity around what value do I actually bring. And one of the big temptations is to determine that we're going to be valuable, and so we're going to like overplay ourselves in different situations, and we're going to force our value into other people's lives. And we're going to be bigger and smarter and faster and funnier and more intense. And we're going to, you know what I'm saying? We're going to impose our value into the world. You will see me, you will recognize me, and you will find me valuable. I think that's a temptation.
Oh, especially in the corporate world.
100%, right? But then you just flipped the script and you said your discovery was realizing my value is in serving others. My value is not in, can I prove to you that I have value? My value is in, can I communicate your value? Because when we're doing things in service of others, what we're actually communicating is you're valuable and I want to serve your value. So it's an interesting concept that rather than trying to garner our own personal value or establish our own value by demonstrating all of these different skills and intelligence and, things, we actually demonstrate our real value when we recognize and serve the value of other human beings. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's the epitome of leadership. That's Jim Cullen's level 5 leadership.
Yeah.
That's, John Maxwell, level 5 leadership. That's the pinnacle per se.
But right now, what we're focused on is Tyler Dickerhoff definition of leadership. And the way that
yes, but I think to that point, it is the living out of these things, because you cannot, and this is where I'll sit with John. John wrote the foreword of my book. Great for that. But I've sat with him. I said, the greatest problem leaders have is what we've bounced around, but we haven't directly said. The biggest problem leaders have is insecurity.
Yeah.
The biggest problem humans have, because it's a human condition, is insecurity.
Yes.
And you pointed towards it. It's like everyone wants to be valued. Everyone wants to feel like I'm enough. As many conversations I've had with hundreds and thousands, whatever, people in all the different rooms. And it's not absolute. I wouldn't say it's absolute, but man, I really narrow it down to where the biggest insecurity, and I ask people in my community, what's your biggest insecurity? And before I even ask that, I'll say my biggest insecurity is, do I have value? Do I have something to contribute? Am I worthy? Right? And it's all that same thing. Do I have value? Right? And as I ask people over and over again, am I enough? Do I have value? Am I enough? Do I have valuable worthiness? It's a human condition. As long as people have been alive, they've written and documented it thousands and thousands of years. And what happens is, to your point, we can either overdo it, be that super intense, or I identified in myself, there were kind of 4 ways that I would show up. I call them the 4 walls. One of them is intensity.
That's what I wanted to get to, the walls. Yeah.
We've talked about intensity. That was one. And one, there's another one that shares a corner, and that's insensitivity. I don't care what you're going through. I'm not even going to consider that. I'm not going to give it my compassion. Figure it out. Get it done. You have a child care issue. Too bad. The job needs done. Right. And going back to the story with the trainer being sick is like, okay, sorry. I grew up on a farm. There was never sick days. Sorry. Just do it. Right. And that insensitivity, and it can show up in a lot of different ways. It can be to the point where, as a leader, you stop hearing from other people. Like, you walk into a boardroom, you say everything. Everyone's like, yep, okay, yep. That insensitivity of understanding other people have value. I made a comment yesterday in a coaching session is, if you walk into a room, you're the CEO, you set the meeting, you lay out while you're there in the meeting, who's the first person that should talk? And we go around and all of them had played college football or understood football. And I said, the players aren't there. You want the lowest assistant. You want the person that feels lowest on the totem pole, because if they feel valuable, they're in the room. You know where I learned that from? John Maxwell. I got to be in one of those rooms, and he said, if you're in the room, you're going to add value. If not, you won't be back in the room. But that takes a leader's positioning and being sensitive to other people. All right. So those are the first 2 walls.
Okay. So
intensity.
Real quick. Intensity.
Yes, yep.
And I'm going to reference from your excerpt. So you're talking about intensity as the temptation to push harder, move faster, and overwhelm others in order to feel safe.
Imagine a bulldozer.
Yep. Second, insensitivity, because I want our listeners to be able to reflect real time for themselves. Yeah. Which of these walls are we struggling with?
Yeah.
So insensitivity, to numb out, dismiss emotions, to take this kind of just toughen up mentality, which really becomes a shield.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a wall, because we put that wall up because I'm afraid if I'm too sensitive, I'm going to get taken advantage of. Or I'm just so arrogant and I don't care about other people.
Or if I'm not intense enough, people won't take me seriously.
100%. That's it. And so kind of this insensitive, they share a corner, what I call, because sometimes you can be sitting in the corner. The next wall is inactivity. And this, the best way to describe it is, say, for example, you have an employee and you're like, man, they're not cutting the mustard, right? They're just not. And you're like, oh, but if we have a conversation with them, it's just going to be hard. They're going to get defensive. You know what? I'll just let it go and maybe they'll get better. Or oftentimes I hear this in corporate situations, like, man, I'm afraid they're going to sue us. The legal ramifications, we'll just let it go and maybe they'll quit. I don't have to pay them unemployment. There's not a severance package. It'll be easier that way. There's hey, I need to have a conversation with my wife, but maybe it'll just blow over.
Guilty.
Maybe this will fix itself. Right? You know this one, right? We've talked about it. So that's inactivity. And it's like, I know what needs to be done, but I don't want to do it out of the fear that something worse is going to happen. I need to leave an abusive, difficult job or relationship, but man, if I leave, it could be worse. Or, then I don't have a job. So I'm just going to stay there. It's the inactivity as a expression of our fear and insecurity of what's on the other side of that wall.
Wow. Okay. So inactivity, you write down here, we wait, we avoid, we procrastinate, hoping the problem magically resolves itself.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the fourth wall.
Isolation. And this is described, the best way I can describe this is you're having a difficult conversation with your wife, your daughter, your son. Let's just say your son. You walk up to your son like, hey, we need to talk. And he kind of looks at you and then he puts in his AirPods and he walks away.
Oh.
He just walks away. Right? You go up to your boss and you're like, hey, we need to have a conversation. And he's like, and just leaves. Or the person that is like, I don't want to work on a team. I just want to be all by myself. So no one's accountable to me. I'm not accountable to them. I just want to leave. It's the person that, will sneak into the office, sneak out of the office. You never get to act. There's no interaction. There is the classic, if you homer into the hedges, there is the Irish exit. There is I will just be so separated. And this is different than inactivity. Shares a corner, but it's different than inactivity because it's not acknowledging what needs to be done and choosing not to do it. It is my action is to just completely separate. So I don't even have to think about what needs to get done. If I don't see the problem, if I don't deal with the problem, it's not a problem.
Okay, so let me ask this question. There's been a lot of, my kids are 23 and 21.
Yeah.
And they're in that season where they're dating and, connecting with other people. And my son the other day goes out on a date and he asked this girl out, really proud of him, right? He didn't even slide into her DMs, just went up to her, said, hey, I'd like to get your name and number. I'd like to take you out. And they did. Okay. And he realized during that time, this probably isn't a relationship that I want to continue.
Okay.
And so he comes home, he shares with us. And then I asked him, what are you going to do? And I'm curious because there's this phenomena that we all call ghosting. Would you put ghosting
100%
into this isolation frame we have?
Ghosting in the fact that it's not, and again, that's where inactivity and isolation can get very similar. They share a corner. Inactivity is like, oh, I know I need to say, but maybe they'll just find someone else, as opposed to, I'm not even going to engage what I might need to do. It's just, we went on the date. I never have to worry about it again. And it's that choice of abdication. It is abdication in leadership.
Yeah.
Nope. You need to lead. You need to put yourself in the situation to either be confronted, to face it. Wow. And one of the things that the tagline on the book is, what you hide controls you. what you face transforms you. And these 4 walls all hide something. They all hide, I am acting in a way to protect myself from whatever my fear and insecurity says I am most scared of. Rejection, unworthiness, whatever those may be. Like the whole idea, people are afraid to get on stage and speak. Why? It's not the what we think of the stage. No, it's rejection. It's rejection, and rejection is directly, am I worthy? Do I have value? And so it comes back to that. And so I saw that, man, these walls would show up. Now, I lean against the wall intensity the most. That's the one where I feel the most comfort. But I've been insensitive. I've, chosen inactivity. I've been in isolation. Like all 4 of those will show up. And that's kind of where my premise, and there's an assessment I have in the book called the Insecurity Impact Assessment that helps people identify which one of these walls is most prevalent in your life.
Okay. So let me just pause you for a second.
Yeah.
I want our listeners to get this book. I can't wait to read it. I'm super excited because you're putting, it's not that the concepts you're talking about are foreign to me, but what I love about what you're doing is you're putting unique language and metaphors and imagery. Like these walls is a powerful imagery around what we hide behind to protect against our own insecurities, our own doubt about our own self-worth. So I don't want to give the book away, but I do want, with our remaining time, for you to share with us, and I think it's alluded to in the tagline.
Yeah.
What you hide from controls you. What you face transforms you. So give us a couple of thoughts on what does it mean for us to face those things that we're hiding.
When you look in the mirror, what do you see? You see somebody that you're used to looking at every day, right? Those little freckles, those little marks, the lack of hair in some spots, the extra hair in other places. That's something you're very used to. Somebody shows you a picture of you. You look at it and you're like, oof, that's not who I see in the mirror. That's not, I told you this earlier, right? I'm getting older. I look at some of these pictures of me for the book. I'm like, man, I'm getting old, right? That's what I see. Here's the reality. When we look in the mirror, it's our intentions. When we look through the window, it's our actions. We can look in the mirror and people say, oh, a leader's got to look in the mirror. Like, you can, that's fine. It's good to understand kind of what you look like, but it's a liar. It's not telling you the truth. Because everyone else, what they look through the window, that's you. So the opportunity is to identify, all right, these are my walls. These are how they show up. Now, you're never going to remove those walls. You can come to grips. You can own the insecurities. You can say, yep, this is my insecurity. Well, another circumstance, another life challenge, that same insecurity is going to show up. So you can't take down that wall and think, oh, I'm done. But this is what you can do. You can put windows in that wall. You can put windows in that wall and you can say, hey, Eric, you and I, we have this language. We're sitting in a meeting and you're like, Tyler, getting a little intense. Thanks, man. Sorry. I wasn't sure how I fit here. My insecurity was showing. Great. I got it. I understand. And vice versa. Eric, dude, you checked out. What happened? Like, we got to handle this situation. Like, yeah, I didn't know what I didn't know how to do it. Okay, great. We can walk through it together. Like, and it's not a confrontation. It's facing it and having that window in the greatest way for anyone to start to progress is to sit down from someone and say, Eric, what do you see through the window?
Yeah.
And then own it. Because whatever you see is reality. Now, I don't have to absolutely agree with it. Right? I can go ask you, I can ask Dawn, I can ask Kelly, my wife, I can ask, 6 other people, and they're all going to have a little bit different perspective. But guess what they're not going to have? My perspective. And so then all of a sudden that starts to create this picture of like, oh, that's what it's like to sit across the table from me. And it was that very moment that I did a 360 review and people showed me is like, hey, Tyler, it's all about you. And I'm like, it's not about me. I don't have like these grand personal achievement. Like I have to, like, no, I want to serve others. And they're like, but that's not how you're showing up, man. oh, then I got to go to work on that.
So let me jump in.
Yeah, man.
And I want to reflect back to what I'm hearing.
It's good.
Here's what I love about this imagery of the walls and then the windows.
Yeah.
Is that they're just walls and no windows.
You know what that's called?
What?
When the walls are lined with mirrors, it's a narcissist. But when the walls are lined with windows, that's when you're authentic.
Yeah. So when we're willing to put the windows in, the language I was connecting with is,
yeah, please.
We're intentional. We can create opportunities for feedback, so that there are two benefits to feedback that I'm hearing you highlight. Number one, we get the feedback that lets us know when we're hiding, when we're operating out of intensity or inactivity or insensitivity or isolation, so that we get to choose, is this how I want to show up right now? Number one. Number two, we also need those windows because we need the feedback that you mentioned earlier, which is we need people to help us identify those superpowers.
Yep.
The unique contribution. Like, what are we the sharpest knife in the kitchen for?
Yeah.
So it's not just a practicing of self-awareness so that we can mitigate against our insecurities. It's also a way of identifying and celebrating and releasing our superpowers in service of the people around us.
There's I'd say a pretty descriptive piece and element here. And it leads to connection, because you can't have that interaction without connection. When we sat down in the golf cart and we had that experience, and all of a sudden you experienced the authenticity, whether it be the vulnerability, that led to a connection. The difference between insecurity and fixing that insecurity and getting to authentic vulnerability, which leads to a connection, is utilizing the tool of empathy. I define empathy as putting your arms around someone and walking with them. That means you have to go at the same pace as them. You can't go faster and drag them, vice versa. But also is this key element. If you put your arms around someone, you just expose yourself. That's vulnerability. Now, you can run around, like we'll say the victim, right? We've talked about the superpower, the hero. We've talked about the villain. We haven't talked about the other one. The villain is running around saying, this is how, woe is me. These are all of my problems. That's toxic vulnerability. That's not helping create any beneficial connection. That is being the person that I need you to just drag me. I'm not even going to, I'm going to be on your back. None of us need that. But authentic vulnerability is, what can I share? How can I engage? How can I expose who I am to enhance our connection? And if I do that, then I can lead you. Then I can influence you, and vice versa. And you can't have connection without authentic vulnerability. If not, it is just transactional. And so this idea of transformational, it has to have empathy. And again, people, a lot of definitions. For me, what works best is put your arms around someone and walk with them, because that takes connectedness. That is vulnerability, and it takes development over time. But it's like, that's how you move from acting with insecurity into being willing to be authentically vulnerable. It's not, oh, this is who I am, take me. No, I need to be the best me to bring out the best in you. This table that, is here at my desk, it's wood, no different than the trees back there. Same wood, but it's been milled. It's been sanded. It's been conditioned so it has a function. Still the same wood. So if we think, oh, I am who I am, all you're doing is a log that's giving everyone splinters. Stop that. Go through the sander. It's still the same beautiful grain of wood. But now all of a sudden it's conditioned to a point that it serves people. It's the sharpest knife.
All right, let me ask you this question. and we're going to finish here, okay. and then we'll make sure people know how to connect with you and get this book. Again, the book title is The Things We Hide, a guide to identifying hidden barriers and leading with authenticity. And remind us again, the tagline.
Yeah. What you what you hide controls you. What you face transforms you.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
What you hide controls you. What you face transforms you.
So good. Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
In a minute or two, what is your purpose? What is your mission? What is it that you're wanting to leverage your superpowers in service of others for?
That's easy. We've kind of talked about it. To help people accomplish what they never thought possible.
Mm.
That's been for a while. But I had no idea that my insecurities were getting in the way. Had no idea. Those walls were barriers in my ability to connect and serve others. I thought, oh, the harder I push, the more I go. That's what's going to help people accomplish. I ended up all alone by myself. I had to slow down, open my arms, and say, ooh, I got to do this different to take people with me.
Yeah, you had to put windows in those walls.
Absolutely. 100%.
You know what's interesting to me is when you said your kind of purpose statement is to help other people accomplish what they didn't think was possible.
Yeah.
What an incredible definition of leadership.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so powerful. It's something that any client that I currently work with could easily embrace and adopt and would be uniquely expressed through them. Their superpower, their
way.
context, their industry, their role title, doesn't matter where they are in the organization. I mean, for any human being, if we would choose to adopt a life mission or purpose statement of to help other people accomplish more than they thought possible, we would become an asset in absolutely every environment we went into. That is, I think, the secret to unlocking our value for ourselves and for others. What you're talking about today is the secret to unlocking our value. We're trying so hard to present value rather than understanding we have value. How do we now leverage it on behalf of others?
Yeah.
Tyler, this has been a fantastic conversation, inspiring,
buddy.
Energizing for me afresh, which I knew it would be. I'm excited to get your new book again. It's called The Things We Hide. It's coming out when?
June 9th is the release date, but you can pre-order now. Go to thethingswehidebook.com where you can buy single copies. If you go to, if you buy a single copy, it'll lead you to a bulk page. I encourage you to buy several copies, buy 5, buy 25, buy it for your organization, because again, you alluded to it earlier. It becomes a common language. And now all of a sudden, you know, how well can people face their fears and insecurities, right? And all of a sudden we talk about the things we hide. You know, just as a moment to end here, I listened to the podcast with Carl Lenz, former pastor at Hillsong United, and Carrie Newhoff. They had like a 2.5-hour conversation talking about his, say, rise and fall, right? 18 times during that conversation, they talked about hide or hiding. The things we hide control us. The things we face transforms us. And the easier it is for myself and others, and we've talked about your journey of facing things and transformed you, right? Transformed your family.
100%.
It's just being willing to go there,
yeah,
and creating a space where people can.
Wow, I love it. If people want to find out more about you, Tyler, connect with you, how can they do that best?
TylerDickerhoof.com. It'll be in the show notes, obviously, Eric, probably. LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, where most is. All my podcasts, the Tyler Dickerhoff Show, as you see here, where great guests like Eric, multiple time guests like Eric, great conversations like this. You can find that stuff there too.
Well, buddy, I can tell you right now, the conversations we're having, and we work with high level, highly successful people across various industries. This is the heartbeat of the conversations we're having with them. So for all of our listeners out there, if you feel like, my gosh, you know what? I'm not a high level executive. I don't own a huge organization. I'm not worth billions of dollars. The reality is unlocking a better future for yourself, for your team, for your family, for your marriage, for your whoever, begins with you really tackling these very simple, deep, and critical conversations around how we show up. Tyler, thank you so much, man. I'm looking forward to getting your book and connecting soon on the golf course.
Awesome. Thanks, man.